In 1995, the international community, led by NATO and the US, gathered to end a tragedy: ethnic cleansing during the collapse of Yugoslavia. This resulted in the Dayton Accords, a peace agreement ending the Bosnian War. Although initially hailed as a triumph of diplomacy in the eyes of the international community, the Accords did not offer solutions for ethnic tension, igniting ethnic violence and sparking a refugee crisis in Kosovo. This tragedy of neglect cemented NATO intervention policy, continuing the Bosnian precedent of military peacekeeping in times of violent political instability. In 1914, a Serbian nationalist group called the Black Hand assassinated the Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand in an attempt to gain independence, sparking World War I. This group was driven by the ideology of a Greater Serbia, a mindset seeking to unify the Orthodox Christian South Slavic ethnic group. This idea involved regaining their ancestral homeland in current-day Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Albania, Greece, and Kosovo, the heart of Serb culture. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles united these territories with Serbia as the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. However, this placed many ethnic groups with varying cultural and religious beliefs within the same border, causing tension. Following the devastation of World War II, President Josip Tito transformed Yugoslavia into a socialist state. Tito pushed the idea of being a good Yugoslav and working for the common good, which overshadowed the idea of a Greater Serbia, making coexistence possible in the country. This period of cultural coexistence and moderate economic success was maintained through the 1980s. The Yugoslav Golden Age began to decline after Slobodan Milosevic was elected president of Serbia in 1989. Milosevic reignited the idea of a Greater Serbia by spreading propaganda and speaking across Serbia, convincing Serbs to reunite with Serbs in Bosnia, where Bosnian Muslims were a threat to Serb life. Political instability coupled with national economic decline led to the republics of Slovenia and Croatia seceding from Yugoslavia in July of 1991. Following this, Bosnia voted for independence as well. Milosevic used this political unrest as an opportunity to enact the plan of a Greater Serbia, uniting the territories but removing ethnic groups such as the Bosniaks. The first step in creating a Greater Serbia was annexing a section of Bosnia mainly populated by Serbs called Republika Srpska. In the spring of 1992, Slobodan Milosevic covertly ordered the Yugoslav National Army, or JNA, and militias to invade Bosnia and bordering parts of Croatia, with the plan to remove Bosniaks from Bosnia. The JNA seized the Bosnian capital, Sarajevo, and swept through cities, enacting their plan of ethnic cleansing. The army set up concentration camps, killing Muslim men and boys over the age of 12 and raping women. A month after the initial invasion, the UN set up 6 safe areas throughout Bosnia which were protected mainly by Dutch peacekeepers. As 3 years of fighting carried on, UN policies were challenged by the US and other European countries to keep their traditional neutrality or side with Bosnian Muslims. This indecision concerning intervention left Bosnia vulnerable. This became apparent on July 6, 1995, when Bosnian Serb General Ratko Mladic led his army of 20,000 into Srebrenica, one of the UN-sanctioned safe areas. Only 200 Dutch peacekeepers were protecting the city, using expired ammunition and outdated gear. They neglected the magnitude of the situation and were unable to protect Bosniaks in a sanctioned safe area. Mladic and his army shot Muslim men and boys on the spot, shelled the city, and burned buildings down, killing over 8,000 Bosniaks. Scenes of this tragedy were broadcast throughout the world, prompting US-led intervention from NATO. This set a precedent of intervention for NATO, as they had a prior policy of only assisting NATO member nations, and Bosnia was not a member. NATO, being led by the US, began a major bombing campaign targeting important Serb checkpoints, weakening Milosevic's grip on Bosnia. This bombing campaign put pressure on the Serbs to negotiate with NATO and the US, who led the campaign in a bid to bring democracy to the war-torn nation. After the shift in military momentum, the U.S. sent representatives to Bosnia to initiate negotiations. On September 14th, Chief U.S. Peace Negotiator Richard Holbrooke assisted in reaching an agreement to end the siege of Sarajevo, setting up the framework for the final peace talks. Presidents of Croatia, Bosnia, and Serbia, along with delegates from the U.S., Russia, and several NATO nations, arrived at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio to end the conflict. On November 1st, peace accord deliberations started at the nearby Hope Hotel. Holbrooke strategically used the poor conditions of the hotel to quickly finish the talks. Over 21 days, Holbrooke was able to keep the talks peaceful between countries with heavy conflict and tension. He presented the capabilities of the U.S. arsenal to accelerate the talks and ensure success. Towards the end of the negotiations, it seemed as if it was falling apart. However, at the 11th hour, Holbrooke rose triumphant and was able to broker the deal by using contested land as incentive to finish the talks. The final agreement ended the bloody conflict that took 250,000 lives. The Dayton Agreement created a future for Bosnia. The primary accomplishment of the agreement was that it ended the genocide. This agreement also split Bosnia into two parts, the Muslim Croat Federation and the Serb-controlled Republika Srpska. Additionally, it created a tripartite presidency to give a voice to the three major ethnicities in Bosnia. To maintain security, the agreement ensured that the ceasefire continued, artillery was withdrawn, and NATO forces, known as IFOR, occupied the contested Bosnia to help stabilize the country. However, this new Bosnia created by the Accords had many shortcomings. While the agreement put an end to the genocide, no solutions were put forth to repair ethnic divisions in Bosnia and the rest of former Yugoslavia. Many parties, including Holbrooke, disagreed with giving the Serbs Bosnian land as it appeared to reward genocide. The tripartite presidency caused frequent disagreement and a stagnant executive system. IFOR troops placed in Bosnia impeded the rebuilding process as their role was not clearly defined in the agreement. In the eyes of the international community, the Dayton Accords were a triumph of diplomacy, as Holbrooke was able to get warring parties together to end the violence.
So anything that sort of stopped the bloodshed in that part of the world was, to me, a huge accomplishment.
However, the Dayton Accords created a tragedy of neglect, as it didn't lead to guilty parties being immediately held accountable, including Milosevic, leading to a conflict in Kosovo. In 1999, tensions were rising as Albanian Kosovars, who made up 91% of the population of Kosovo, wanted to seek independence from Serbia. With tensions high from the breakup of Yugoslavia, the Kosovo Liberation Army began to turn protest. Wanting to hold on to Serbia's cultural homeland, Slobodan Milosevic authorized lethal force to be used by Serb police against protesters and sent troops from the Serbian army to enforce Serb control. Over 1 million Kosovars left to escape the violence and were displaced from their homes. NATO used their military intervention following the Srebrenica precedent to quickly intervene, ending the immediate crisis in Kosovo. This early intervention by NATO prevented a second genocide in Kosovo.
We act to protect thousands of innocent people in Kosovo from a mounting military offensive. We act to prevent a wider war, to defuse a powder keg at the heart of Europe that has exploded twice before in this century with catastrophic results.
The Srebrenica precedent cemented NATO's permanent shift in strategy and power in the global community and has been used to justify further NATO military peacekeeping intervention. In the Libyan civil war, NATO used their power attempting to promote democracy by stopping conflict in the country. Critics of NATO intervention question the legitimacy of the operations. Amnesty International has said, NATO forces violated the laws of war, leading to cases of unlawful killing of civilians. NATO's intervention in regional conflicts has been the last step in ending violence. However, a blueprint for the future in Bosnia, Kosovo, and Libya was rushed, leading to further instability. This can be seen in Bosnia as the needs of the citizens were neglected by the Dayton Accords, not allowing Bosnians to properly heal and build a new nation.